Hello everybody, welcome to another video. My name is Infiniti and today I am going to be showing you guys the second method on how to join crochet brims to hats knitted on the Sentro knitting machine. For today's tutorial, I will be using two different colors of yarn, but of course you'll be using the yarn appropriate for your project. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into this tutorial. So in order to get started, you're going to want to make sure your machine is set to T, which mine is. And then you're going to want to get your yarn ready. And what I do for this method is I don't do a slip knot like I normally do. If you guys typically follow my Sentro videos, you'll know that I usually form a slip knot and then put it over the first hook. But this time I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to drop my yarn straight into the machine and wrap it in front of the first hook as normal. And then I'm going to go about casting on. So behind the next one, in front of the one after that. If you need a more in-depth tutorial on how to cast on and get started with the Sentro knitting machine, I will leave that tutorial linked either in a card up in the corner or in the description box below. Oops. And today I'm using my small machine, but you can use the regular size, whichever size Sentro you have. It's just easier to do the tutorial this way for me. Alright, you're going to make sure that first hook catches the yarn again. You're going to pop it into the threader and into the tensioner. And then you're just going to crank up your project. So you can make up your hat for as many rows as you'd like. I'm just going to crank up a few rows on this small Sentro for a sample. And then I'll meet you guys back when I am ready to cast off. Alright, so I've come up on my last hook, so I'm going to make sure that last indicator hook catches my yarn, and I'm going to cast off by cranking a full row without yarn. And if you're unfamiliar with the cast off process, likewise I'll be leaving that video linked either in a card or in my description box below. But alright, once I have cranked a full row without yarn, or almost my full row, I'm going to cut my working yarn and I'm going to proceed to cut off. So for this you're going to need a yarn needle to loop off your stitches. And once I complete this step, I will meet you guys back for the actual attaching of the crochet. Alright, now that I have finished that mess, I am going to just cinch this close. Of course, if you're making hats, you're going to want to sew this together. But right now, that's not my objective, so I'm just going to leave him hanging there. I'll go back later and close the top. What we want to focus on is this bottom part down here where we cast on. So, because we didn't do the slip knot at the beginning, this thing down here is still workable. So what you want to do, you noticed if you've straightened out this curled up part here, you have like a very loose V shape that is typical of knitting, the edge of knitting. So what you want to do is find the one that correlates with this string, this tail. And what we're going to be doing all the way around here is just kind of like tug of war. So you can kind of pull it like this, or you can find these loops and pull them out one by one like this, and then tighten the tension with the tail here. And all we're doing here is neatening out this edge so it's better for us to crochet into. What you don't want to do with this is pull it so tight, especially if you have a fiber that catches really well. You don't want to pull it so tight and then not be able to stretch it out down here. So again, you're just gonna either, like I said, find these things one by one and kind of just play tug of war here with this tail back and forth so that you have a neat edge going around here. And it gets really easy as you find that loop in your project that you're supposed to be pulling on. And you can stretch it every so often just to make sure it's not getting too tight. So again, for me, the string that connects back to this tail is the one on the right, the loop on the right side of this little V shape along my edge. It might be different for you depending on how you cast on your stitches. Okay, it's coming from there. Alright, so you'll notice when in doing that it kind of uncurls your project as well. So if you were like not wanting to put a crochet edge on your project, this kind of straightens that out and makes it more manageable. But alright, now you have a couple of options here with this tail. You can either weave it in as you normally would, or you can go ahead and attach your secondary color or secondary strand of yarn. You're just going to find any old crochet hook will do. And some people go under here, under those little V stitches. I tend to go in like an extra row with mine, because like right on that edge, if you crochet into it, I guess I'll show you, if you crochet into it, you're going to get a bunch of little holes here. So in order to attach your yarn to your project, you'll just create a loop, put it over your hook, going to yarn over, pull through, and can chain one to secure it, and then you can start single crocheting or double crocheting or whatever crochet you want to do around the base of your hat. And I'm going to show you guys the little holes that you can create in here if you just go under that first edge of stitches. So like right here. Now I typically don't like this look. I can see straight through this hole right here. So I tend to go in, like I said, a stitch deeper than from the edge, and that way it kind of conceals those holes. What I'm going to do is I am going to take my hat, and I'm not going to work, personally, I'm not going to work right into the edge of these loopies, these like little bottom loopies that I just showed you, because it leaves those little annoying holes at the bottom of your work where you're joining the crochet, and I personally don't like how that looks. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take my crochet hook, and I'm going to work like a couple stitches away from the edge of my work, and I'm going to attach my yarn. So you're just going to create a loop over your crochet hook after you insert it into your project. You're going to yarn over, pull up that loop, and you can chain one to secure it. Now you have options when it comes to creating your brim on these hats. I personally like to start off with a single crochet because it's a really seamless and neat way for me to weave in my ends as I go. and it also just, it kind of looks more uniform to me, so that's what I do. I'm going in about 2 stitches or 2 rows away from my edging, so as neatly as possible I'm just going to insert my hook in these rows about 2 stitches away from the edge, all the way around until I've both woven in my ends and have completed this row. Like I said, in the last video I did, which was method 1, I did folding of this edge. I folded it inward and then I crocheted, but this is a way to forego that, because some people like to flip up their brims or make their brims flippable or reversible, so this is an alternative to that first method. I hardly ever crochet these edges anymore. I did a video some time ago on how to do the double knit brim on these, so you can check that out as well. I'll also leave that in the card or in the description box. So a fun thing about this, I'm of course worked on my small machine, and that machine has, I believe, 22 needles on it. I can look to make sure. It has 22 needles on it. So while I'm crocheting this, you may notice that I am not only crocheting in the spaces where I have those edges that I just did, but also in between there. So I'm gonna have about 44 stitches around, and this is a good method to use, because sometimes when we crochet, our tension with our crochet is a little tighter than the tension of the machine in general. So this is a good way to make sure that the brim of your hat is not too tight and that it still fits the head that it's intended for. So if you worked on the larger Sentro, like if you worked on the 40 needle machine, you might end up with somewhere around 80 stitches around, more or less. And of course, with the 48 needle, you'd end up with about twice as many of those stitches. This is something that I figured out through experimentation over the last couple of years. In the beginning, I used to kind of do the crochet edges on these hats, but like I said, once I came up with the double knit brim thing, I haven't looked back. But I think the crochet look around the edge can be pretty cool, and they're so much more versatile than the double knit brim, so it's really all up to you. And as I continue to go around here, if you're curious about the yarn I'm using, I am using a Lion Brand Basic Stitch. It works really well in the Sentro knitting machine, so I kind of stock up on it when I can. Alright, and I'm coming to my last stitch of this first row, so I'm just going to close it with a slip knot as I normally would. I mean a slip stitch as I normally would. And this completes my first row of this edging. So a lot of people like to put the ribbed brim on this, so if you wanted to do that, of course, you could chain up however tall. Some people do it with half doubles. I like to do it with doubles. but I'm going to chain up 2 for this size, and of course you can do your front post, back post stitches starting from here. I think kind of like the hat in the thumbnail. So of course you can go as far as you like on your edges. I typically only go 2 to 3 rows in on these mini projects, but again, when you're making larger projects, you're going to want to make more rows that at least cover the ears. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If so, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on awesome weekly content. I typically post knitting tutorials every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. CST. If you have any suggestions for future Sentro videos, let me know. I will try to get to them as soon as possible. There's still a few from last year that I am trying to figure out and working on creating the tutorials for, but feel free to leave your input down below. Also, don't forget to check me out on my other social media. I'm on pretty much everything except for Snapchat. You can find all of my social media in my description box. And until next time, guys, happy making. I feel the need to show him off. Okay, so I have a thing for plushies, and since I have a small Sentro machine, I end up making them clothes when you guys request these videos. It's just a little weird fun fact about me. This is actually the conservation fox I got last year when I went to Jeff City. It was so much fun, and this is just my little souvenir. Anyway, now he has 2 hats. I can change him up. I forgot he had ears. If you want to see another way of adding crochet to your Sentro hats, you can check out the tutorial I did for this guy, my alpaca. He also has a hat. They are so happy now. Alright, until next time, guys.